One, Stuart would like to pop up and give you a couple of minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm on? Yes? Next week is Pinhole Week. So if you haven't seen a pinhole camera or even made a pinhole camera, then please do come along. I'll do a bit of a talk and a show to start the evening off, and then we'll get into actually making some pinhole cameras and taking some images. Ian's going to look after the digital side. So bring your digital camera and bring a body cap for your camera. And Ian's going to walk us through how to make a pinhole and then how to use that to take some digital pinhole images. I'm going to walk us through how to make a solar can or an analog pinhole camera. So if you want to do one of those, bring yourself a can of Coke. Empty, but probably that 330ml size, regular size can, Coke or Fanta or beer, whatever. But yeah, wash it out before you come, and then I'll walk you through how to actually turn that into a pinhole camera, and actually a solar camera that you're going to take home, and you're going to find somewhere to put it up and leave it for 3 or 4 months. And then we're going to bring them back probably towards the end of the year, and we'll share what images we found. So do come along to next week. It's going to be a bit of an action-packed and hands-on experience, so great. And I'll put a posting on the Facebook group probably later this week as well, just for those who are not here tonight. So, okay. Starts at 7? Yep. So we'll start making cameras probably from around 8 o'clock. So I'll do a talk between 7 and 8, and then, yeah, from there we'll start making some pictures. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. That's the end of my massive list of notices, unless anyone else has got a notice they would like to bring to the club. Most excellent. So Janine is going to introduce the judge for the open print number 4 competition, and Dawn is kindly reading the critiques for us. So I'll hand you to Janine.
Hello everybody. So tonight, Open Print 4, the judge was John Reed, and John lives in Greymouth. So I'll just read you his profile. In the 1980s, John's passion for photography developed when he started working in the Westland National Park as a ranger. I was working and playing in an incredible environment, big mountains, amazing light, and photography gave me the format to capture some of these scenes for
Does that work?
Right, resume service. So John lives in Greymouth and is currently working for the Department of Conservation based in Hokitika. He is a member of the Photographic Society of New Zealand and the Nature Photographic Society of New Zealand. John enjoys landscape, macro, wildlife and photojournalism photography. Some highlights of John's photographic career have been to photograph wildlife in Botswana in different parts of the Okavango Delta in 2014.
Apologies, I checked the batteries and they looked okay.
Right, can you hear me? That sounds right. Okay, so he went to the Okavango Delta in 2014. This was followed up with a second trip to the African continent, visiting Namibia in 2016, photographing wildlife, landscapes, and some of the Namibian culture. John has been an accredited judge for PSNZ for a number of years, and he judges in the open and nature categories. So for Open Print 4, there were 38 entries. There was a very high acceptance rate of 95%. So 36 out of 38 were accepted, were all accepted. So acceptance were 18, high acceptance there were 12, honours there were 5, and there was 1 honours and best in show. So thank you, Dawn. We'll leave you to read the critiques.
Score 2, that's on. Storm brewing over Lake Tekapo. My eye was immediately drawn to the storm. The clouds swirling off the hills have impact. In my view, the composition would be stronger had the photographer concentrated on this aspect of the landscape. I suggest that leaving the lake foreground out would have achieved a stronger result. The clouds top centre appear to have some noise evident. This is appearing as white, grainy type effect, and once I saw this, my eyes stayed with it. I'm not sure why this has happened, but I'm wondering if the print has been slightly over-sharpened. I think the black and white presentation works quite well, with a pleasing colour tone running from light to dark, evident in the print. Score 2, Aurora at Lake Ellesmere. The depiction of the colour of this aurora is a strong element. I suggest that the print is perhaps a little dark and flat. I think that the photographer perhaps needed to use a higher ISO to allow more light to get to the sensor, as well as sharpening up the stars. There are slight star trails which suggest that the exposure was a little bit too long, hence my comment retrying to use a higher ISO and keep the exposure to around 25 seconds or less. The arrangement of the landscape elements works really well in this composition. Score 3, accepted, when plovers flew into the scene. The arrangement of the elements in this snowy landscape works quite well. The horizontal bands of tawny coloured grass hold the foreground, while the dark line of intercepted trees add to the overall strength of the composition. Having 3 plovers perfectly placed just above but in between the trees is an absolute bonus. There is just one small thing I think should have been cleaned up in post-production. There is a dark splotch just above and to the right of the middle plover. I suspect this is an element of the background hill showing through the mist. My eye keeps going to it, and I suggest that this has been cloned. Had this been cloned out, the print would be that much stronger. Having the background hill left adds context, and I was pleased to see this element. Score 3, acceptance, moody. I enjoyed the juxtaposition of sky and land as seen in this print. I found the presentation a little challenging, and for me, this didn't work. I liked the idea, but I think the black matte has overpowered the effect visually, possibly as I think I want to see the same amounts of white showing as on the top and bottom of the image on the sides, left and right, and then a black matte would fit this proportionately. The picture itself is moody, with shape and texture being mimicked between the land and the sky. Score 3, acceptance, forest gold. I enjoyed the simplicity of this print. It's beautifully presented, and the high gloss print media was a good choice. In my view, the area of fern that crosses over is tack sharp, and this is where my eye immediately went to, and then I shifted up, and I felt that the top of the fern fronds are just too out of focus and soft. I think the idea of having this area slightly soft was a good one, but once I saw this, my eye tended to stay there. The dark, clean background with a hint of green really complements the golds of the fern. Score 3, acceptance, the Hut House in Escalante, Utah, USA. The arrangement of the elements within this composition perhaps helped to tell some of the story of this hut house in Utah. The signage right, the parked vehicle, and the person reading the signage, giving us perhaps a clue as to what this might be about. As a black and white print, I found it to be overall a little dark, with the exposure set for the whites in the sky, leaving the foreground landscape quite dark. Overall, I'm left wondering what the story is truly about. Score 3, acceptance, morning mist, Fox Glacier. The mist lifting off the Potocarp forest of southwestland has, as seen in this print, tells us something of the place. My eye tended to get a little stuck on the dark trees bottom left, and I suggest that this could have been lightened a bit in post-production by just pulling the shadows out some more in this area. The mist rising out of the gullies, intercepted by the trees on the ridge lines, creates mood and adds to the story. The slight hint of sky, top, and the intersecting ridge lines is a strong element. There is some beautiful structure to the trees in the mist. Score 3, acceptance, view from the train track. The train track disappearing into the distance is a strong element in this print. In my view, as a landscape-orientated print, it didn't quite work for me. I found that my eye stayed on the track as it should, but I felt the expanse of landscape either side of the track detracted from the story rather than adding a stronger element to complement the track. Perhaps a portrait-orientated print would be stronger. I suggest the element of sky and cloud proportionally would also be stronger if this was reduced by half, placing the far distance of the railway track on the top third of the print. The colours of the landscape are perfectly presented in the print. Score 3, acceptance, derelict ironworks, wharf. The warm light and colour of either a sunset or a sunrise stands out in this print. The placement of the horizon on the bottom third with the sun peeking over the headland right is a dominant feature which perhaps detracts from the story being told about the derelict wharf. I say this because my eye wandered from the sun to the two piles right and back to the sun again, my eye being stuck on the right of the composition. In my view, a crop that didn't include the sun would have created a stronger composition and told the story of the derelict wharf a little better. The slow shutter speed used has flattened the sea nicely, creating that sense of calmness, leaving the silhouettes of the piles to tell the story. Score 3, acceptance, lost beauty. I think the dark tones as seen in this print add to the story being told by adding a feeling perhaps of nostalgia as the flower head slowly decays. The composition is reasonably simple, with less being more. The light on the browning petals describing what is happening. The depth of field has been well handled, and the placement of the subject matter being just off centre works quite well. Score 3, acceptance, ICM in the CAF. The lighting and the colour are strong aspects with this print. I think the vertical lines of light and colour have created a surreal and pleasing effect, although in saying this, my eye wandered throughout the print without really settling on any particular part. As such, I was happy to just view this as a whole and let the verging lines and colours stimulate my imagination. The large white mat and the semi-gloss media have been effective in the overall presentation. Score 3, acceptance, morning mist. The mist rising above the forest adds mood to this print. I think the photographer has composed this to capture the reflection of the forest in the water as well as the mist rising above the forest. For me, my eye has gone to the misty area, and I don't think the expanse of water has greatly added to the story the print depicts. Perhaps a different composition could have been stronger. The exposure and contrast used have enhanced the detail in the print. Score 3, acceptance, autumn trees. The warm golden colours of these fruit trees in autumn, combined with the leading line of grass running from front to back between the two rows, has made an effective composition. I think the composition would be enhanced had the area of bright light top of print above the row had been eliminated, as my eye tends to get stuck on this. The softness created by the slightly blurry leaves on the trees complements the leaves that have already fallen. I think that this just adds a nice touch and some mood to the story being told. The horizontal shadows falling across the pathway also add another nice dimension to the print. Score 3, acceptance, pear. I enjoyed the simplicity and calmness portrayed in this print of the pear. The shape of the pear and the placement in the composition helps to lead the eye through the print. I think that a long exposure has been used to effectively smooth the surface of the water while also creating mood in the shadows that appear underneath the pear. The black and white toning adds to the effect, and the position of the one light in the composition adds to the strength of the presentation. Score 3, man from Udapur. The eyes of this man from Udapur are very engaging. I think the lighting across the skin area of the face is very bright, with some strong highlights evident, and to me makes this area of the print feel slightly out of balance with the man's beard and his turban. The vertical lines in the background are also a bit distracting. I suggest that quite a wide depth of field has been used here. This has made the subject's features tack sharp throughout, but has also retained the background detail. The placement of the subject, with the man's shoulder being forward in the composition, with the head slightly turned towards the photographer, works well. Score 3, acceptance, white butterflies, diet change from cabbage. I had to chuckle at the title. The colours depicted in this print are subtle, and I think this has created a print that feels quite peaceful. Possibly the lilac blues do this. I suggest the composition would be stronger had the flowers, bottom left, been cloned out, and a small crop from the left just to remove half of the space between the, crop from the left, just to remove half of the space between the and the butterfly's wings. The detail in the butterfly is excellent, and the background has been rendered beautifully neutral. Sorry, I'm not sure what he means there about the gap between the something. Score 3, autumn palette. The depth of field used here has kept the monarch butterfly and the 3 foreground flower heads nice and sharp. In my view, I think the dark areas of the monarch have been lost somewhat in the dark background, with the dark background along with the strong yellows becoming very dominant in the print when being viewed. The print is nicely presented, and I think the white matte complements the whites seen in the monarch. Score 3, acceptance, early sunrise on gum tree bark, Western Australia. The golds and the texture of the bark are well depicted in this print. I found the lighting on the bark to be quite harsh on the bottom right, while being perhaps a little dark, middle left and top. The different amount of contrast in these two areas made my eye gravitate to the darker area and then wander around in the print and not really settling. Perhaps waiting for the light to be more consistent would allow for a stronger composition. The colour, though, is a strong element, and I think the fire of an early morning Australian sunrise can be appreciated in the print. Score 3, acceptance, dusky sound waterfall. The photographer has used a fast shutter speed, stopping the action of the water. This has worked very well, as I can appreciate the power and the rush of the water as it falls over the vertical drops. I think the exposure has been set correctly for the whites of the water. This has retained the detail in the water, but has left the rest of the print looking a little flat. I suggest that applying a curves layer over these other areas in post-production, lifting the highlights, would have punched up the greens, also lifting the vibrancy that I would like to see in the print. The black matte and the semi-gloss print media suit this scene. Score 3, acceptance, West Coast tannin water. I think the colour of the bed of the stream helps to tell the story of this tannin-stained waterway in this print. The log adds to the story by providing some definition, providing a surface for the photographer to focus on. The reflections on the log, created from the slight ripples on the water surface, is a strong element. Good use has been made of the lighting. The shadow created also helps to define the log. I think the colour is accurate and the print is nicely presented. Score 4, high acceptance, Fiordland Base Camp. I enjoyed the story that is being told through this print. It's one I can relate to, perhaps a hunter's campsite. The light falling through the scene has painted the key elements with different intensities of light, helping to tell the story. The placement of the beech tree branches top helps to frame the scene, while the smoky campfire adds mood and also the key element that makes this print come alive. Score 4, high acceptance, Oamaru Breakwater number 1. The action has been well timed and caught at the ultimate moment in this print. The exposure has been set for the whites, allowing the viewer to see some nice detail in the waves as they explode above the breakwater. The shutter speed used has frozen the action nicely. The colour tones running throughout the print are accurate, and I think this helps to tell a story as we can see the greens of the ocean in the background and a distinct change of colour to the water in front of the breakwater, which will be part of the harbour. The lighter shades of blue in the sky add to the overall effect. The large white mat complements the whites in the waves. Score 4, high acceptance, moods. I enjoyed the overall simplicity and minimalism of this landscape print. The story being told is very effective as the storm rolls in off the wild ocean. The areas of light and dark relay the message to the viewer. There is enough detail, shape and form in the silhouetted headland and rocky foreshore to describe the scene. The large surrounding white mat being very effective with presenting this. Score 4, high acceptance, Hackett Falls. A relatively slow shutter speed used here has helped to tell the story of the water cascading down through this moss-covered scene. The greens stand out in the print, while the protruding branches and twigs add another interesting dimension. The dark mat adds to the mood and feeling portrayed throughout the print. Score 4, high acceptance, Hawkton Sunrise. I enjoyed the feeling of simplicity with this print. The proportions of sky and mountains are perfectly arranged within the composition. The warm, lighter tones of the sky and the mountain tops contrasting nicely with the colder mist shrouded lower, darker slopes help to tell the story of the sunrise over the Hawkdens. The feeling created is a bit like surfing on waves of light. I suggest, though, that dark line and the blue bottom centre is a slight distraction. The print is beautifully presented with a large white mat and a white insert left visible from the edge of the print that adds depth. Score 4, high acceptance, white hydrangea. The style of this photographic print and the way it has been presented, I think, works quite well. I found I was more interested in the background layers than perhaps the subject. I suggest that this is because of the strong diagonal shaft of light that held my attention. In my view, the whites of the flowers, being slightly a darker shade of white than the background layer, have become a little lost in the composition. The green of the leaves helps to add balance and perspective. Score 4, high acceptance, high fall. The presentation and the print media used to produce this print has added something quite special to this landscape. In saying this, one has to play with the light that the print is viewed in to achieve the effect that the photographer has intended for us to see. Once seen, the print takes on an almost three-dimensional aspect, and the gold colour toning really becomes evident. By using this technique, the attributes, that doesn't make sense, sorry, and story of this waterfall have been enhanced. Score 4, high acceptance, stillness. The panoramic format of this print and the placement of the landscape elements has worked quite well. As the title suggests, the print has a feeling of stillness and tranquility. The juxtaposition of the misty clouds being reflected in the still water and then placing the horizon of hills centre has added depth to the print. The lighting on the hill centre just adding another nice touch. Score 4, high acceptance, light and fog over lake. The mood created in this landscape print is a strong element. The surface of the lake blending into the fog and cloud adds a perspective of depth, and the eye is drawn into the print. The light and mist reflecting off the water adds to the feeling. The headlands on the right provide some nice context without being overly intrusive. The semi-gloss finish of the print works well. Score 4, high acceptance, Hawkden Range. The structure and the arrangement of the landscape elements work well in this print. I think the dark tones, top and bottom, add strength to the composition by directing the eye towards the horizon centre. I found this area of the print challenging. I suggest that it appears to be a little blown out, losing detail in the sky that I feel should be a slightly closer tone to what we may see above and below. I acknowledge that this may have been the photographer's intention. The foreground creek and long grasses add to the story being told, and I get the sense of late summer and clouds building up in the late afternoon. The print is beautifully presented, the white mat being really effective at presenting the range of tones running through this black and white print. Score 4, High Acceptance, Hanging On. The splash of orange and yellow helps to portray the story being told through this print. The slow shutter speed used has helped to define the water as it rushes over the boulders. My eye follows the current downstream and reaches the top of the print where the light is just a little bit stronger. My eye then gets a little stuck on the 3 lighter coloured rocks top left. I suggest that the print would be a little stronger had these rocks been left out with a crop down from the top. The luminescent green of the moss-covered rocks has been well captured, adding another pleasing element to this print. Score 4, High Acceptance, Man from Hong Yen. I think the warm tones in this portrait have added to the feeling being portrayed from the subject. The light falling slightly across the face has provided enough definition to the facial features without being intrusive. The eyes are engaging, and the almost slight smile adds to the story. The print has been beautifully framed around the hat, and I think darker areas away from the centre of the print are complemented by the black mat. Score 5, Honours, Tianao Jetty. The black and white of this jetty, leading the eye through to the background Fiordland Mountains, is striking. The weathered detail of tones of grey on the foreground planks is replicated right to the end of the jetty. Having the end of the jetty placed on the top third of the print is a strong element in the composition, as this frames the background landscape. The symmetry of the jetty being almost a juxtaposition of left and right, and the triangular elements of water, bottom, add to the sense of scale created. The mood of the mountains just help to complete the story. Score 5, Honours, In the Pink. As a composite image, I really enjoyed the shades of pink and the arrangement of the elements within the composition. I had to look at the print for a while, and I started to see more. The arrangement of the elements has created an almost three-dimensional effect that has depth. The perceived shadow leads the eye to this effect. The white cloud also adds to this. Some of the angles are subtle and add to the intrigue created. I couldn't determine what the cactus represents. For me, it created tension. Maybe this is just what was intended. Score 5, Honours, Dusky Sound from M.V. Flightless. The symmetry of this composition was the first thing that stood out to me when I first viewed the print. The bow of the ship in the foreground builds and shapes the story beyond. The ford and the surrounding hills seem to be moulded above the bow and with a range of grey tones leading from the bow to the lighter sky above. The feeling created is perhaps cold and wet with a sense of calm. The additional touch of the clear layer added on top of the print media adds yet another element, adding to the artistic appeal that we see. Score 5 honours, soy sauce making. The story being told through this print is very strong. The composition has been arranged using the arrangements of the elements. The diagonal lines of pots is well defined, with the light falling from more or less right to left has left some well-defined shadow, making the rows stand out as well as the individual pots. The timing of the shot with both of the people with their hands up, sifting through the soybeans and wheat adds more to the story. The different colour tones are all accurately represented in the print. I think I have learnt quite a bit about soy sauce making just from looking and enjoying this print. Score 5 honours, last forest light. I really enjoyed the style and presentation of this print. The photographer has dared to be different. The colour toning elements are very strong. The dark tones in the background suggest a forest/wilderness setting, leaving this up to the viewer's imagination to perhaps decide. The placement of the model within the composition, I think, adds some tension. This has been created by placing the model centrally and leaving space above the model's head. I think this adds a sense of scale to the print and adds to the story being told. The light falling across the model is balanced and contrasts nicely with the dark tones of the background. The eyes are engaging. The toning of the fur wrap complements the skin and hair tones. Score 6 honours and best in show, Wandering Toroa. I enjoyed the simplicity and almost calm serenity that this print portrays. Well composed and beautifully timed. The elements that are very strong are the silhouettes, the wandering Toroa firstly, complemented by the headland's top. Shape is everything with these silhouettes. We don't need to see detail to interpret the story being told. The other aspect I appreciated here is the sense of space. The low light adds some really warm tones, creating mood and feeling. Just capturing that swell of the waves, foreground for me, completes the story of tranquility. Another beautifully presented print. The print media used helps to make this stand out.
Great, thank you for that, Dawn. So the first image is accepted when plovers flew into the scene by Joe Curtis. Moody by Denise Festier. Forest Gold by Ian Walls. The Hut House in Escalante, Utah, USA by Timothy Gostomsky. Morning Mist, Fox Glacier by Mike White. View from the Train Track by Jan Bogue. Derelict Ironworks Wharf by Janine Money. Lost Beauty by Adrian Gentleman. And ICM in the Cafe, also by Adrian Gentleman. Morning Mist by John McCall. Autumn Trees by Diana Andrews.
Thank you.
Pier by Anne Yuan. Man from Udapur by Alistair Phillips. White Butterfly's Diet Change from Cabbage by Nerily Keating. And Autumn Palette, also by Nerily Keating. Early Sunrise on Tree Gumbark, Western Australia by Karen McConaughey. Dusky Sound Waterfall by John McCall. West Coast Tenon Water by Jan Bogue. This is the first of the high acceptances, Fiordland Base Camp by Peter Curtis. Oamaru Breakwater No. 1 by Karen McConaughey. Moods by Toby Mears. Hackett Falls by Alistair Phillips. Hawkton Sunrise by Joe Curtis. White Hydrangea by Diane Kelsey. High Fall by Stuart Klook. Stillness by John Ben. Light and Fog Over Lake by Diana Andrews. Hawkden Range by Stuart Klook. Hanging On by John Ben. Men from Hung Yen by J.K. This is the first of the honours images, Tiana Jetty by Janine Money. In the Pink by Diane Kelsey. Dusky Sound from MV Flightless by Ian Walls. Soy Sauce Making by J.K. Last Forest Light by Heidi Anderson. And Honours and Best in Show, Wandering Toroa, and that was Mike White. So thank you all for that. We've got a bit of time. Shall we go through some of the images? Be able to play them back and we'll have some comments? Heidi, would you like to talk about your image?
This is one I did with Shelley Harvey, we went and we were learning how to use Photoshop. So it's a bit of a composition. I did the forest and I did ICM movement with that, and I also had some other textures that I put over the forest to make it less vertical. And I just thought they all blended in really well colour-wise with the model. So we actually had the model out. I just remembering what we were doing, and someone was quizzing me earlier, and it's all come back to me. So we had the model out in this beautiful beaver coat and this massive, beautiful fox, this fox collar as well. And she never modelled for us before, and she was a last-minute fill-in, and she just did everything so beautifully. She was such a natural, and it was important for us with to get the eyes really, really crisp and sharp. So I was worried about the lenses being distracting, but managed to get those eyes really, really popping. So a lot of sort of intricate work with that one. So I'm really chuffed that it's got placed. Thank you.
JK, where did JK go? Oh, right.
Yeah, that was for my trip recently, not quite recent, beginning of this year to Vietnam. And we visited the factory there where they make soybean. The place is full of this vast, and the workers are working to prepare for the making of this soybean, soil soil, and the one in the tray that they were fanning, they are soybean, and they put it in the container, to ferment, and for a long time, yeah, and that's where the soy sauce come from. Yeah, thank you.
So that was obviously the jetty at Te Anau. I went down there for 3 mornings hoping to get a nice sunrise and didn't get any nice sunrises, so I went for black and white. And I particularly like the little pebbles in the lake underneath. I like the way that they shone through in the black and white. Is that it? Okay. Oh, thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you. It was delightful seeing all of those pictures this evening. So thank you very much for all those who made the effort to put a print in. It's most appreciated. And thank you very much, Dawn, for reading. That was quite a mission today. So thank you. And thank you, Janine, for you and Diane organising all the print competition for us. So I understand, I think there's something due in at the end of the month. There's the MDC, and I believe there's the Natural History PI due in at the end of the month as well. Does anyone remember what the MDC is? Repetition, just in case. Thank you. I don't have any more notices. Has anyone got any other notices they'd like to speak? Okay, well, we look forward to next week with Stuart Clock doing pinhole photography, and that sounds quite interesting, and I'm very sad I'm going to miss it, so hopefully other people can have a great deal of fun and show me what I missed out on. So thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. I'd like to say thanks to Gordon up the back, and Wayne, and Alan, and Alastair, Janine and Dawn, and thank you very much, Dennis, for opening and closing. Oh no. Supper and thank you very much for supper for John. And if I've missed anyone, I do apologise, but have a lovely evening, and we'll see you all again next week.